Peace, faithful family. I'm going to take a few more minutes this afternoon to do a continuation on self-creation of Allah in the universe. And it's definitely on time. Today is Christmas, and to get some truth into this narrative, into this situation. White man got the world believing Jesus 2,000 years ago was born on the 25th of December. And as we should all know, that's completely and totally false. And no one knows the exact birthday to Jesus, but it definitely wasn't on the 25th of December. And the best estimate is the first and second week in September. And white race has perpetrated this huge lie in the world. And really have the world believing in devils, worshiping devils under the name of Jesus. So in our last video, we talked about how Allah, God, was the first father. Allah created himself out of a state of nothingness or darkness, but it was beyond darkness. It was nothingness. And of course, all this is based on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and you can find parallels in other schools of thought and other doctrines as well, which for those who don't ascribe to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad should give some credence or support to the truth of his teachings. Nonetheless, God was, or the first father, Allah, created himself in a state of nothingness. And this is known by the scholars as creation ex nihilo, some say nihilo. Nonetheless, creation out of nothing. Ex nihilo is a Latin term meaning creation out of nothing. And according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, no God lives forever. So when the first father created himself out of a fine atom, according to Mr. Muhammad, that he lived for a certain amount of time, but before he died, he reproduced himself. And the next God continued in the work of building the universe. And as I said in the last video, the Masons interestingly call God, Allah, the grand architect of the universe. So that notion dispels the idea of white man's Big Bang theory, that creation was in fact an accident. And if creation was an accident, then there's no truth in it, and we know the universe is created in truth. Now, falsehood can't exist in the universe, and eventually, falsehood creates an imbalance in the universal order of things, and the universe strives to destroy falsehood, to restore a balance. And everything in the universe is created in pairs. So when the first one created himself, the woman was with him. The black woman was with him. The reason why we're black is because the first one created himself out of nothing or darkness. So therefore, he is a product of his environments. And we, the black man and woman of America, are descendants of the first father, Allah. And this is why we refer to ourselves as gods, because we are descendants of the first one through a continuation of trillions and trillions of years. And again, it's not to say that God, the first God, or the one who set creation in motion is alive today, but that first one died. They all died, but before they died, they reproduced themselves. Now, everything in the universe works toward perfection. It starts out from a lower state or imperfect state and strives and drives for perfection. And this is the meaning of the Arabic word, one of the 99 attributes of Allah, called Rab, R-A-B-B, which means nourisher unto perfection. So everything in the universe strives for perfection. And according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is consistent with the whole idea of the word Rab, that everything in the universe strives for perfection, that there was imperfection in the beginning. When the universe began, there was imperfection in the universe. So we've been on this long journey of trillions of years toward perfection. And accordingly, there was imperfection in the black man. And again, we've been on this long journey toward perfection, toward attaining perfection. Now, the perfecting of the defect in the black man in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is called the manifestation of defect. And if you study the teachings, you can find Mr. Muhammad making reference to this in the 1972 Savior's Day address, The Birth of the Redeemer. And it's very clear, it's very explicit when he talks about working out the defect. So all the great events in the history of the black man for trillions of years have been geared or drives toward perfecting the black man, working the defect out and perfecting it. Now, originally, as we said in our last video, the planet Earth was known as Blue Ether, and we had 13 tribes. And 66 trillion years ago, in one of the first events toward perfection is known as the deportation of the moon, when the black god G.C.C wanted to destroy the planet because he couldn't get everyone to speak the same dialect. So he caused a great explosion on the earth, and this is known as the deportation of the moon, that the moon was blown out of the earth. And interestingly, modern science, or the white man's science, believes there's a part in the Pacific Ocean, a great area where they can tell underwater that something came out of the earth. There's like a void there in the crust of the earth beneath the Pacific Ocean. And another interesting aspect, again, Mr. Muhammad said it was a great explosion that was caused that blew the moon out of the earth, is that in the samples that they got from the moon through space travel, they said that the samples of the earth of the moon smell like gunpowder. In any event, G.C.C blew the part that we call moon out to earth, which became our satellite. And this was a very significant part of our history. Now, before the explosion took place, the black gods were able to escape the planet. And after the explosion, they came back to the planet, which was a new place, because part of it was blown out. So they traversed the planet 2.5 times and decided that the best place was a present-day holy city, Mecca. And they marked it with the black stone. The black stone represents the black man here in America, that the stone the builders rejected, that we find in the 118th chapter or Psalm in the Bible. Now, in the explosion, one tribe got lost, so that reduced us to 12 tribes, which is consistent with the number of how the universe is laid out. It's laid out on the number 12, the 12 constellations. And when you raise 12 to the second power, that gives you a square. So the universe is laid out in truth, or on a square. The foundation is square. Now, in the Bible, Revelation chapter 13, verse 18, it says that the number of man and beast is 666. So the man represents the black man. A lot of people think that the black man's number is 7, but it's actually 6. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was very clear. He said that the first 6 represents the 6 trillion years that it took to bring the sun into existence. And the second and third 6, the 66, represent the deportation, 66 trillion years from the deportation of the moon. So the black man's number is 666. And the devil's number, the beast number, the white man's number is also 666, but it has different meanings. His 6 represents the 6,000 years that it took to make him, and the 6,000 years that he would be, the 6,000 years that he would be allowed to rule the planet. Alhamdulillah. Now, the next great event in our history is 50,000 years ago, our father Shabazz was one of the 12 scientists in Mecca, Arabia. And he went to the other scientists and said that he had an idea that he wanted to make a people that was hard and tough and strong, a people who could not be defeated. And in Mecca, in that area of the world. And the other scientists said, no, you can't do that here. They perhaps didn't understand or just wasn't feeling it. So they told him to go to what we now call Africa, which Mr. Muhammad said at that day and time was called East Asia. So Shabazz took his family or his tribe into what we now call the present-day Nile Valley. And if you look at from a geographical point of view, the continent they now call Africa is really very close to Arabia. It's only separated by the Red Sea. So in any event, Shabazz took his family into the Nile Valley where they tamed the wild beasts and became hard and tough and strong because of the environment there. And also that's the origin of the black man's and woman's kinky hair. Is originally our hair was straight. So when Shabazz took his family into the continent that we now call Africa, that made us into a different kind of people. So we should understand that basically you have two kind of black people on the planet. You have black people with straight hair, say the original black Indians from India, and you have the black man from Africa with kinky hair. So those are the two differences. And according to Mr. Muhammad, the origin of our kinky hair is that when we left Arabia or the root of civilization and moved into the harsh environment of Africa, that turned our hair kinky. And that made us hard, tough, and strong, a people who could not be defeated. And I don't really think there's any controversy on the physical strength and power of the black man as opposed to other people on the planet. Now, the next event in terms of the manifestation of defect took place 6,600 years ago by one of our wise black scientists by the name of Yaku, or Jacob in the Bible. And of course, Jacob had the idea, he discovered that there was a weaker part of the black man. And he wanted to bring that weaker part out and allow that weaker part to rule the stronger part. And again, when he presented that idea to the other scientists and Allah said, you can't do that. But eventually he relented and allowed him to bring out the weaker part of the black man, which we call the white man. This process took 600 years. So in other words, he gave Yaku, or Jacob gave the defect in the black man a form. And that form is commonly known as the white man. That's the manifestation of defect. So in being a people who could not be defeated, we the black man under divine test, those of us who don't fall victim to the devil's civilization or the white man's civilization, we will be used as the seeds or the people to build a new civilization to come. This new civilization is commonly known as the hereafter, the afterlife, paradise, or heaven. But this is not in death. The misunderstanding and misinterpretation of it is that this comes in death and that the spirit or the soul or some entity leaves the body and go dwell in this place, perhaps in the minds of people in another dimension or in space somewhere, and we live with God. But that's the wrong understanding, the wrong interpretation of heaven or the afterlife. Heaven or the afterlife or the hereafter is after the workings of the white man or the weaker part of the black man. And those black people who don't fall victim to the devil's civilization, those are deemed worthy or perfected to be the seeds or the beginning of the new world or the new civilization. Life after death really means life after a spiritual death or a mental death, which we, the black people in America, have been under since being kidnapped here to the wilderness of North America. In fact, we stepped down from power when we left the root of civilization 50,000 years ago. That was really the beginning of our fall, the black man's fall. And so we have been on the downward spiral since then. But now, since 1914, we have come back into the black man's rule after allowing the devil or the weaker part of the black man or the manifestation of defect to rule us. So, just to sum up, let's not think or believe that God is some cosmic entity that dwells in space or in the sky or in some other dimension or sits on a throne, literally sits on a throne in space. These are all misunderstandings and misinterpretations of the true nature of God. The true nature of God is that God is a man, a black man, always has been and always will be. And there is no cosmic entity or anything of that nature, a cosmic being, a spiritual being that's over us, above us, dictating the affairs of man. That creation was set in motion beyond 78 trillion years ago by the first Father Allah. And that the universe is regulated according to laws, and that we are in a state of perfection. Everything in the universe strives for perfection, and that we should never think, in the case of Jesus, again, the day being what the white race calls Christmas, or the supposed celebration of the birth of Jesus, that somehow Jesus is in space with his Father God standing on his right side, and that this is to be literally believed as an actual fact, and nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, the Bible itself says that man in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 is that man represents the temple of God, that the Spirit of God dwells in man and the black woman. And these are just some of the basic things. On one hand, the creation of the universe is could be construed as, some kind of high science. But, the reality is, it's just the truth. And it just gives us a better understanding of our existence, why we're here, what is the purpose of life, which is a fundamental question. Why are we here? What is this thing all about? So I think I covered about everything. And again, just to reiterate that God created nothing, the first Father, and that Allah is actually the proper name of the Supreme Being, not God. God is a European, a German word name that actually means to evoke. It really is not definitive enough to describe God or Allah. And that Allah means, the basic meaning of Allah is all in all. And Allah has 99 names which define, or 99 attributes that define the different qualities of Allah. So again, as I said in my last video, Rahim, Rahman, Rab, Ali, these are all part of the 99 attributes. No God lives forever. They all die, according to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but they reproduced themselves before they died. And it's very important for us to believe that and understand the true nature of God. And everything in the universe works for perfection. Everything strives for perfection. That's the meaning. The name Rab is a very important name, one of the 99 attributes. Again, means the nourisher unto perfection. That everything in the universe strives from a lower state, and it strives to a more advanced or perfect state. So just in our daily lives, we should, one of the things I think the takeaways from that is that we should always strive to better ourselves. We shouldn't be content with our present situation. We shouldn't be content with our understanding, our knowledge, our wisdom, that we should always strive to perfect ourselves, to better ourselves, which is very important. And again, in creation, there was a defect in the universe. There's a defect in the black man, and that we have been under this process for trillions of years of working the defect out, which is known as a manifestation of defect. And again, nothing in the universe is actually perfect. It's striving or working toward a state of perfection. For instance, Mr. Muhammad pointed out that there's nothing completely round in the universe. No natural object is completely round. He said that's probably a work for some wise scientists to come along to figure out how to make perfectly round things in the universal order of things, which is, very significant. And in the next universe, this universe, of course, will eventually collapse, and there will be a new universe. And as Mr. Muhammad said, that universe will be a better place, if you will, because once you experience a thing, you know how to improve on it. And some of this, sounds somewhat fundamental and, just kind of reduced to, its lowest common denominator or its lowest terms. But, it just seems to all fit, at least in my mind. And to give some understanding of, again, what creation is about, what our existence is about. And, just before I close, I just want to thank the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for taking the time. He spent 44 years teaching us, and I believe he taught us very well. And he taught us some things that no other person came along to teach us. And we being hard-headed people, or people who are really hard to teach, stiff-necked, hard-headed, and he had great patience with us, and he had a lot of tolerance in teaching us. So with that, I think I'm going to close, and until next time, peace.